acquired. Target acquired.
Alright, we're about to get underway. I just want to check my levels here. I'm not hearing anything from my monitor. There it goes. Perfect. Perfect. Yeah, Ryan, there's probably viewers from at least all over North America. So Local recommendations, well, awesome. May not hit everyone. If we can come up with some great global resources, that would be good. All right, we're gonna jump to the video. And Ryan Cousino is actually right here as he does the pre-race announcements. I'm hoping the video frame rate is good. I'm getting some warnings here, so if it's not, let me know. So yeah, here we are at the Escape Velocity Spring Series event. This is a kermesse, which is a little bit of a misnomer for the event, given that probably what we race on a typical weekend at Spring Series would be a kermesse if you go by the traditional definition, which would be a short kind of 15-kilometer circuit race done over the course of a couple hours. This is closer to a crit. We're doing a 70-minute race over a shorter, I think this lap is 5 kilometers, I might be wrong, course. And so it's a little bit kind of half crit, half road race. Not as many corners, not as technical as you'd find in a typical crit, but because of that short duration, you're going to find the same intensities and a lot of the same tactics apply. We're just getting all collected here on the start line. I think some people are showing up to do the race still. Ryan's telling us all the important rules, various and many. One of the most important ones: no yellow line violations. Spring Series has been a long-standing tradition out here in Vancouver, BC. We've had some of the best North American racers come through the events at various times, and it's I think a really good opportunity for a lot of people to get their legs stretched before the season starts in earnest. And realistically, I think half of us take it more seriously than we do the rest of the series. It's been a pretty good season for me so far. I've had a couple good races out of my legs. I actually won last week's race, so I'm feeling pretty good, coming out on a little bit of a nice start to the year here. Our team overall has been just killing it. I think between I can't remember how many races we've done so far, but I feel like we've won a ton of them. So that feels pretty good. Feels like a great start to the year. About the field, this is the second day of racing. Day one yesterday, most people did. It was a traditional Spring Series race, and that it was rainy the whole time. Day two, not as many people showed up. There's the kermesse, because it is an hour drive out from Vancouver. It's a bit much to get people out here. So I think we're looking at a field of maybe about 20 people, and it's actually combined Cat 1, 2, 3, and Masters today. Normally we'd have a 1-2 field, a Masters field, and a Cat 3 field all separated. But yeah, didn't get the numbers out, but that's okay. It's an opportunity for those in Cat 3 to really learn, some of the Masters to see if they've still got the stuff to take out the young guys, and everyone has a lot of fun in these situations. Weather yesterday was rainy, but today it looks pretty nice. It's a little bit chilly. I think I was just hot bomb, but having a pretty good start to the year here weather-wise. The course itself, we're gonna go and obviously do a lap here super soon, but it's got two pretty good hills on it. One of them is a little bit longer, starts with a bit of a grind up to a couple turns on a steep section, and the other one is just one hard kick up to the finish line. So we'll see here. I'm gonna try and engage with the chat here. So Aaron, 29, you're probably not a Masters. I think in the States, Masters is 35 plus. So I wouldn't worry too much about finding yourself in the Masters age group yet. Realistically, Masters racing, I think the most important thing is to race with your ability level and get a handle on how to race before you worry about competing with the Masters. All right, I think we're about to roll out here. There we go. So we'll just go through the parking lot shortly here. So try and introduce you to some of the characters in the race as we go. On the left here, wearing my team's old kit, is Nigel Kinney. He's a hotshot racer locally. And then right beside him, rolling into frame here, is Dylan Davies, another super strong local racer on my team. Mostly we'll be identifying people by their butts today, so luckily we should be able to differentiate between these two fairly easily, and also note that they are on my team. Beside me, and I don't think he's going to roll into frame here, is John Wilcox, another super great local racer. So the 1-2 are going to take control of this field. Ryan's asking if there's been any good crashes. No good crashes, and none this year at all. We've been racing very safely and disciplined with minimal yellow line violations, and I don't think any that I would consider egregious. So overall, doing pretty well. All right, so we're going to make the right-hand turn here onto the course. Directly in front of us is the start-finish line, and it's not going to capture the real situation here because you can't see the approach to it. And from the gun, taking a page right out of one of our teammates' books, Dylan goes, and following him immediately is John. So in a lot of these situations, especially in Spring Series, that could be the race unless people get the chase on. Those two guys up there, super strong racers, both really good track riders, know that they've got huge engines underneath them and can roll all day super hard. And there goes another one. Now, I'm not going to chase these just yet. I know those two guys are super strong, can be up there for a long time on their own, and I don't want to drag the field up to them, waste my energy, and really eliminate our chances at having a good breakaway. So I'll just kind of chill out here, see what the field decides to do, have a conversation with Nigel, talk about what happened yesterday. You know, it's a good time. Yeah, Ryan's pointing out that's Quinn's story on the right. He's Cat 3, junior rider, super strong junior rider, and I was really impressed with him this whole race, as we'll see throughout the video. But yeah, really fun to ride with these guys I wouldn't normally ride with, and get an opportunity to see how they do. Sage DeLuce going off on the right side. So Sage just upgraded to Cat 2 this year, I believe, and he gets a response from Nigel because he is a super strong rider. Doing super well on the track, really good sprint underneath him, so a bit of a threat if he gets up there and can stay in the breakaway. So we want to make sure that we control that, which we do. And this is one of our Masters riders trying to close the gap here. And he's doesn't look like he's going to quite make it. So this is an interesting race because pretty much the deciding action felt like it happened right here before and out of that first corner. So you can see that now Sage has got a big gap on the group with Nigel, and another couple guys start to go here. This is when I start to follow. The volumes are getting big enough that I don't want to be left behind in the event of a big break. And some of these guys might be threats. Right here on the front, right here on the front is Zach. He's from the Hugh Dog Racing team, another local team. Zach's actually from Ontario, but he's been having a great spring series, working really hard, getting his fitness together. And you can see he drags back Sage, pretty effortlessly. That was a good move by him. Swing by here. Now my advice to Sage, as he was going back, would be to get back in as quickly as possible. Find yourself in the top 5 riders, because you just did a lot of work on the front, and it would be a shame to drop all the way to the back of this group of 20 to have to waste all that energy again moving back up in a minute. So now I'm going to try and jump across, because I think we've got a bit of a gap on the field, so I'm trying to jump across to this other rider who is trying to bridge to Nigel and Sage, and obviously Nigel's now Wilson pointing out, don't chase the chaser, chase the guy chasing the guy chasing the chaser. And that's basically what's happening here. Seeing the important gaps to close down and controlling the field a little bit, and that's a lot of what I end up doing, because now both of my teammates are up the road, and so really it's going to be about having fun in the field, getting workout, because it is a Spring Series race and it's not one of our A races. Sorry, Ryan. And kind of practicing some of the team tactics that we see in a bigger race. And Sage getting back on the front here. I'm not going to pull through. Let's see. So what I normally do, and this is a bit of a background why I'm trying this out, is I normally watch a whole race through when I'm doing a correct corner and make timestamp notes and say, oh yeah, okay, that happened at 10 minutes in, 30 minutes in, and make notes about what I'm actually going to talk about in the video before I edit it. It makes it a lot easier to go through. And so I figured, hey, why not do that all at once with a live stream? So that's what we're doing. So now we're off that 0 av section. That 0 av section, pan flat, but it does have a pretty good crosswind coming from the left, the south, which is the US. You can see the US in this video though, every time we're on 0 av. Sage is going to take the reins up the hill here. So this hill starts pretty much from as soon as you turn that corner, you start climbing. It's not super steep at this point, but if the pressure's on, you're working pretty hard. So, you know, it's if you've got someone really delivering the power up front, you can do a lot of damage to a group through this section. And what the hill does is it's a fairly gradual hill, and then it kicks up, drops down, kicks up, drops down, kicks up really hard at the very end. And all of those changes in pace, that's an opportunity to stretch the elastic of the group and try and snap it a few times. So here we're going to crest the first steep section. You'll see how it kind of lets off a little bit before it kicks up again. And just letting Sage do a bit of the work, sitting on his wheel, seeing, you know, don't really know how I'm going to take this race yet. Don't know what the tactic's going to be. At this point, I've assumed that breakaway is going to stay away, though. It's got 4 guys in it. 3 of them I know are super strong, and a 4th guy from another team means that really, of all of the Cat 1-2s in the field, there's no reason for any of us to work. So now we're on that next kick. And, you know, one of the masters taking up the reins here. Doing a little bit of the work. Okay, so now we're in the flat. This it's not quite flat, it's more of a false flat grind up to the top of the crest. The whole race, as you can see in the top right corner there, kind of big square with this little squiggle right at the edge. So we're going to drop down here. This is a nice section if it hasn't been super strung out, or if you've been second wheeled. So just let your legs relax a little bit. If I were on the front and trying to do damage, this is probably where, coming over that crest, I would have kept the pressure on, because people tend to want to rest over the top of a hill, and not giving them that opportunity gives you a lot of chance to control the race and control the opportunities, and limit the opportunities for other riders to attack, but also get rid of people who are feeling weak. Now we're going to get onto the steep part of the climb, and I think pretty much every lap through here it was hard. Not necessarily full attack, but hard. And a lot of this, I think people want to get a feel for what their legs can do, stretch their legs a little bit, and that was definitely what was on my mind here. I knew I didn't have to do this hill solo off the front for, oh, sorry, that guy just dropped a chain. That was tricky, and so I used that to maybe jump across. And looks like we've already got one of our breakaway guys getting dropped back, and it is rough being on Nigel and Dylan's wheel. So I can tell you from experience, doing training rides with them and being on breakaways with them, it can be a lot of work to be up there. So all right, so we just finished that climb. I put in a little bit of a dig just to see what that would do. And now you get to look at my hands. I got in a little bit of an arrow position. That wasn't Amiel on the front. I'm not sure who that was. I can't remember his name. One of the Cat 3 guys with the chain drop. But yeah, sorry, you're gonna get the view of my hands, because when I'm off the front alone, I'm probably going to be in an arrow position, and arrow is everything, even if my bike isn't. Yeah, so this section here across the top of the course, fairly flat. It's got a few little rises in it, and I'm not really digging that deep. I'm not sure at this point, you know, I could bridge across, but the reality is if Nigel and Dylan are going for it, bridging across is going to end my day, and it's going to end my day in a really hard way. And I don't really want that experience. I would rather have fun with the group, stretch my legs when I can. And so what I was doing there, kind of that 250 watt easy pace, lets the group catch me, but doesn't waste a ton of that energy, but does make the group do work to bring themselves back to me. Yeah, so we're just through the small rises on this section of the course. We're going to start dropping down here. It's a pretty quick descent. You gain your speed pretty quick as you start it. A little bit of a plateau in the middle, and then into a right turn. And this right turn is the right turn into the finish line. So it can be really important how you set yourself up for it. And every lap, every time we go through it, we'll kind of talk about what to be looking for in that section. So again, here the wind's coming from the right. Always paying attention to the wind, especially out here on these big exposed flat courses. So moving on the left side is good. We're about to hit that hill, as you can see, 55 kilometers per hour on this descent pretty easily. If your gloves have 2 holes. Yeah, well, it's they're speed holes actually, so it's 2 holes would be better than 1, and realistically if your gloves are all holes, they'll be very fast. So again, try another dig here, see what happens. Just kind of having fun with the group, stretching my legs a little bit because I tend to get really bored, and I took a very strong caffeine shot right before this race, so I'm pretty twitchy. And here we go. This is the last hill, and so it's really important to pay attention to this hill every lap, and how people are taking it. This is where the finish line comes, and we're just gonna summit it here. It kind of levels off just before the finish line. I think there's probably about 20 meters of near flat before the finish line. So there's a group of 3 up the road right now. We've got 2 guys from my team and 1 guy from Ride with Rendell who doesn't have any other teammates. So there's only one other Cat 1-2 team in the field, and one of their guys just came back from the break at this point. This guy here rode a pretty strong race, trying to animate it, trying to keep things interesting. One of the things I was always trying to do was let these little breaks go and then jump across to them. I was never going to do the work to drag the field. I knew the field would probably be following me if I went on my own, and if I went right away, the field would just eliminate whatever break was going to happen. We'll call this break. The race has gone way up the road. So what I do is let that gap extend a little bit out there, maybe as much as 15 seconds, maybe as much as 30. I don't think I ever let it get that far in this race, and then jump across. And when you jump across, means everyone behind you has to work really hard, and in some cases won't try. And then when you get up there, I don't have to do any work because I've got teammates up the road. So until we have a really nice strong gap established, I don't feel the need to do any work. And at this point, the breakaway was still within spitting distance, so bridging across probably was doable, but wasn't necessarily in my best interest, especially not knowing the strength of the guy I'm on the wheel of here. So I'm not pulling through. He's going to do work. It's probably annoying him quite a bit when I don't really pull through. As you can see, not exactly going all out here. Let the group catch us. But yeah, what that does is kind of make the group do the work. If you bridge really quickly, you can kind of do it in almost a sprint. You're going to be a lot better off than if it takes you half a lap to get up there, and then you're there to work with someone. So even if this race didn't have this situation, that's what we do. All right, group's caught us, so attacks start to go. No one's really going super big on these attacks, and on a short course like this, on a short race like this, your attacks have to be sharp. Crit racing attacks have to be really sharp to get things going. And so this is the other Hugh Dog guy here, Zach, and again, same thing. Let him get up the road and see what the field does first of all, if people perceive him as a threat, and then depending on the situation, try and jump across. Oh, here we go. See, we get some movement from the field, and when you're in the field, stuff like this happens. It's easy to get on, but the key is when you do, just keep going. If they sit up, you've got the momentum. Don't waste that momentum. Don't waste that match. So here you can see I took the time, established a gap, and actually when I blew by the Hugh Dog guy there, I didn't even give him a chance to get on my wheel. I decided, let's see what I can do. Again, this race, the situation played out in such a strange way, it was kind of hard to figure out what my tactic was going to be. I think at this point there was a couple of seconds where I thought, yeah, I could bridge up, and then I started feeling what 350 watts felt like for a minute, and decided that, oh no, maybe that's not what I'm going to do today. So again, you can see I'm kind of sitting up here, seeing what the field does. This is kind of a surprise to me what I'm doing. I kind of remember the race, but I don't necessarily remember what I did the whole way through. So I'm going, oh yeah, that's how that played out. That's a surprise. So yeah, I'm rolling along here. This is probably a pace that if I had a nice big gap, I'm thinking more than a minute, that would be what I'd need to be doing to hold it to the end of the race. In this situation, it's not going to be enough. The pack has some really strong guys in it, in the Masters field and in the Cat 3 field, who can actually drag me back over the 70 minutes, and I don't really feel like doing that much work. So again, field's caught me. Gonna see them as they catch up. So the other thing that I'm doing all through this race is trying to stay in the top 3-4 riders. Dropping back further than that, albeit it's only a group of 20 guys, but if I drop all the way to the back, that's 20 guys I have to pass, or 19 guys I have to pass when I need to follow a move, or when I do decide to accelerate, or when I try to position myself at the end of the race. So the more I can stay in those top few riders, the easier it's going to be for me overall. The other thing is those top few wheels. The racing's a lot smoother. You don't get the elastic band effect nearly as much, and when we're going over these hills at higher efforts, that elastic band can be pronounced even in a group as small as this. I mean, you may have even had the experience riding with a group of 5 or 6 riders in the winter, doing a big training ride, and someone on the front puts down that little bit of extra gas, and you go, oh, that hurt. That's what's happening in racing. It's just happening the whole time, non-stop. So yeah, here we are, climbing the hill, putting some hurt on the field. Not a super high intensity, but enough to keep it going. I actually want someone else to pull through. I don't really want to be on the front. Yeah, Dylan pointed out it's almost as driving that they paved that climb. This climb used to be horrendously bumpy. It had the worst alligator pavement I think I've ever... we race in Spring Series, and it really made it interesting. You know, there was that extra fatigue that comes from bouncing pavement, and at the end of, we do this climb on other races where you'll be racing for 3.5 hours. At the end of that time, you really feel that adds a lot of fatigue. So that's something to consider in any race, is what's the surface in any given section? What's it going to do riding over it a bunch of times? Are you looking for the smoothest line when you are there? Are you pushing people to be in the worst line when you're in those situations? All right, so these are our 3 Cat 3 guys. They were super fun. They were animating it most of the way through the race. Pretty much this hill was their favorite part, I am sure. They loved this hill, because they'd get to this hill and start to make things spicy. So you can see, like, this is our second time up the hill, so our legs are still pretty fresh, but you can see it's a 400 to 600 watt effort for most of us. And so if I were to be in a different race situation, getting to the top of this hill is where I would want to keep the power down. Like, if I were on the front of this group right now, getting to the top, this is where I'd want to put in that one extra dig, because it's not it's not doing the hill that's going to crack most people. It's getting over the top of the hill that's going to pop people. And so yeah, if these guys had to put down that little bit of extra power over the top, probably wouldn't have destroyed the group, but you definitely would have blown some legs out. And you have to remember too, if someone gets a little bit distance over the top of a hill, they have to do a lot of work to get back into the group. So that's that's energy that they don't have later. I'm never one to lose an opportunity to move up, so it's just a little bit of a sneak here, and then I don't want to hit this puddle either. Get to the front, roll through. It's an easy ride when you're back in control. But again, what happened there, and really to those 3 guys, like, if you're gonna go and do that work on the climb, you've got to make it count for something. If you're just gonna do that climb hard, you know, that's just an interval. But what you want to do is make that climb a tactical part of the race, putting in those big efforts. I think this guy's name's Carlo. I'm not totally sure where he's from. This was his first weekend racing Spring Series with us, but I'm sure he's been out here before. he was vocal. He wanted to make the race interesting. I think he wanted to have made that breakaway and didn't really realize that breakaway just kind of happened. And it just kind of happened to all of us. We were all stuck in this situation. So he starts making us work. Ryan's just pointing out this is Carlo Quicho from Mexican, but he's local. Oh, so he's the new Arturo. Okay, I didn't know that. That's good to know. I'm glad to hear he's local. I hope he's out here more, and I hope he gets some good racing in out here, because yeah, he was fun to race with. Wanted to keep things animated, wanted to keep things interesting, and you know, this, for being the only teammate left in the field with no real obligation to work, this race turned out one of my highest normalized powers for a race of the year. So, you know, it wasn't easy, and these guys were keeping it spicy, which was a lot of fun. So again, Hugh Dog getting on the front, doing some work. This guy liked the longer, harder pulls. He can deliver some good chase effort. So again, paying attention to this corner, because this is really defining. This is where you could lose the last lap if you got yourself a bad position. I know people tend to break into it a little bit too much, and you can carry a lot of speed through it if you're comfortable. So, you know, that's kind of what I did there, and it was fortuitous that the Hugh Dog guy drifted off so that I could basically carry all that momentum right out of there and hop on the front. Again, this is one of those situations. You put a bit of power into the base of the climb here. Guys hit the climb hard. Now they're a little bit fatigued, and now I'm a little bit fatigued too, but makes it a little bit harder for everyone to grind their way up it, and a little bit harder for people when they get to the top, if they've been grinding over the whole climb, to deliver the power to get a decisive breakaway. Because this is one of those places where you could potentially establish a breakaway. The wind doesn't really favor it. Yeah, if you want, you could go and look at the live results and see this race play out in a recap on the BC race results. So this is interesting. I let these two guys go, and it goes back to what I was talking about a little bit earlier, where you let a gap open up. You know, I need to bridge across, and this guy rolls up and starts pushing on my back, telling me to work. Well, you know, the reality is I don't need to do anything, and if anything, I should be sitting at the back of the pack. So, you know, tactically, someone might tell you to do something in the race, and unless it's your team captain, you don't have to do it. You need to be racing your race and racing it as smart as you have to. And it was kind of in protest. I drifted all the way to the back of the field and let this little gap play out and see what happens here. All the way to the back of the field in this descent. And we're into a headwind here, so what I said about attacking over the top of this, attacking into a headwind isn't necessarily the best thing, because realistically anyone in your draft or anyone who's chasing gets the full advantage of draft, and so the group behind you, more numbers, does less work. And, you know, didn't take much effort to catch them. It's really important to corner fast, even on a course like this, even on a course with only really 4 meaningful high-speed corners, because that's just that much less work you have to do, that much less acceleration you have to do coming out of those corners. And yeah, here's what I was talking about. You jump across these gaps. Don't drag people across, jump across. Make everyone else do the work so that you're just not dragging people around and giving them an advantage. It's good. I got my Born Sports Care water bottle here, so yeah, a little bit of local stuff here. On the left is the United States. 0 Avenue is the border. There's a drainage ditch, and if you had a really weird crash, you could end up having to go back through the border crossing just up the road here. Someone's gonna have to give me these Cat 3 guys' names, because I do not know them. but they were racing. They were pretty fun to race with. I think this was another stretch my legs opportunity. Get to the front, 400 watts. You know, you can move pretty quick along here in this crosswind. What would have been tactically smart for me would have been to gutter most of the guys, make them do some work. Thanks, Dylan. Trevor Bestian. Michael oh, it's Michael Matthews. Oh, okay. I think Carlo was actually wearing a full skin suit, not just cool socks, but a full skin suit. With his vest over it, it wasn't super warm. Most of us wearing arm warmers at least. Adam, it's yeah, Carlo Quicho on the Specialized LA. So I dropped back in the field a little bit, get a little bit of recovery in. I have actually done a lot of work, and at this point I can feel it in my legs, and thinking, you know, how far into this race am I, and realizing that maybe there's a little bit more work to do. And yeah, you can see here what I mean with cornering. I was able to carry a lot of speed through that corner and pick up a free wheel and do a lot less work staying with the group as we got onto this climb. Carlo going again. Now I wasn't totally sure if he was going here. Oh, you know what? He's following a wheel. Who's he following? Doing a good dig. Oh, Hugh Dog again. Nice. I think in a bigger field, this hill has been such a great opportunity to decide the race. If it's coming down to a sprint, you guys, your team, getting the chance to stretch it way out before you hit the base of the steep part of the climb. If you're on a breakaway, how are you playing this climb? Just because it doesn't really end. It hurts all the way to the finish. There goes Ryan with the heckling. Yeah, it wasn't a deep cat 2 field, so we were racing off against the Masters guys. But hey, you know, I've got teammates who are racing Masters right now who are winning every race they enter. So Masters, you know, those Masters guys are fast. So again here, get some recovery, use the descent. There's a lot of number pinning jobs that we could criticize. You know, maybe I'll do a quick corner on how to pin your number, because there's some real sales in this field, and I'm sure people, you know, there's an educational experience here. It's a teaching opportunity. Onto the climb. I think this time I put in a hard dig here. This was an effort, seeing how the field responded, and this is when I get to the top. So you go hard, keep it hard the whole time. Everyone's sapped, doesn't want to hold your wheel, and right here where it starts to level off, put in another dig, keep it going a little bit longer, because that's where you can establish a break. And I think if I look back, I've got probably 10 bike lengths again at the top of this, so it's settle in and find a rhythm, but I don't want to get a huge gap here. Again, good look at the hands. These are great gloves, by the way. I think I've had them for a long time, as the holes demonstrate, but they're perfect on a spring day like this, where it's not really cold enough to warrant anything windproof, but you don't want to go barehanded. Something of this weight is perfect. Keep something like this in your repertoire. Now this is the dead space that I have to somehow try and fill in. There's not a whole lot happening as we ride along the road. Here, alone. So this is, you know, maybe not the best demonstration of what to do tactically if you're the only teammate left when the rest of your teammates are in the breakaway. Realistically, the opportunity in this situation is to chill, to relax, and let them hopefully win the race. And then, if in the unfortunate event that they do get caught by the field, you're super fresh because you haven't had to work the whole day, and you can do some nice damage in hopefully whether it's the sprint or if you need to go and establish a new breakaway. So I'm still off on my own. Very much about minimizing the work when I'm off on my own, trying to find a comfortable position, an arrow position, and do as little work as possible. Because really I shouldn't even be doing work anyways. It's a nice close-up of my gloves, guys. Do you like that? My dirty, ratty gloves. So again, you want to go through that corner really as fast as possible. Save that energy. You don't have to accelerate. Now the field's pretty much caught me at this point, but coming out of that corner fast makes them do that little bit of extra work. So even if, you know, if I was getting caught on a breakaway here, if this was a really short crit course, railing those corners super fast and making the field take that more technical piece that's harder to do in a big group, that gives you a lot of advantage. Should we call the channel Kermesse Corner? Yeah, we should call the channel Kermesse Corner today, but even this is not a Kermesse by definition. As I was saying at the beginning of the stream, a Kermesse is actually what we typically do on a spring series. They're 5 to 10 kilometer loops. Field, actually where it went right there, where that dig happened, that's where you want it to happen. You want to do a little bit of a dig over the top there and maybe get a gap. Jay, you may have come for the crits, but no one's delivered a crit to me yet this year, so I'll tell you what, we'll do something after Walla Walla. We'll get something good happening. Walla Walla would be a very exciting crit too. Walla Walla is probably one of my favorite crits of the year. It presents a technical opportunity with some really deep field racing that isn't super weak deep where you're just getting your face pounded in by a bunch of professionals. So it's tough for Hugh Dog out here. There was only 2 of them. You know, your best tactic in a race like this would be to try and bridge solo or with just 1 or 2 other people. If they were to work together as teammates and try and drag it back, then really all they do is burn a boatload of matches, and that's not really worth it. Well, I mean, it might be worth it, but ultimately if they burn all those matches, there's a lot of guys in this field who I know can jam a good sprint, and to just waste all that energy on the front to drag back, maybe drag back, and pretty much be guaranteed a non-placing in the final sprint it's a tough call to make. So really what you should be trying to do in these situations is bridge across, and hopefully bring 1 or 2 strong guys with you, but not do it with the whole field. So one of the things I was trying to do every time I got on 0 Ave, and this is just good practice, is try and ride as far to the right as possible. With that strong crosswind coming from our left, from the south, guttering the field, you can make it just hard to ride. And it's good practice for everyone to get used to riding in crosswind conditions and to think about the tactics of riding in crosswind conditions, because it's something that you can get naturally good at. You won't even think about it. You'll just go to the right side of the wheel. You'll just push the field into the gutter if you need to. So it's an important thing to practice and think about when you're in these races, and where you can control your position a lot more. The worst thing in a crosswind is to have someone else dictating what the wind is doing to you. That's really the least fun you can have in a race, in my opinion, is sitting in the strung out crosswind mid-pack death. That's just death march. Little gaps are opening up. You can do nothing to close them because they're 2 wheels ahead of you. We do some races that are like that. It's a rough time. It's emotionally draining. Yeah, it's Tour de Bloom's road stage. Is unbelievably windy. And super exposed. It's been decided, I think, on the second corner every year I've raced it. It's a 3-lap, 4-corner prairie crosswind. Like, it's real. Yeah, I'd definitely say that this race, this Kermesse, is closer to a crit than it is to a Kermesse or a road race. It may have a few longer straightaways than a typical crit would, but I'd still classify it as a crit. Adam's asking if I can comment on my early season form. Yeah, it's been a pretty good early season for me. I'm feeling pretty strong. Haven't done a whole lot of the speed work yet, so we'll see when the real crit racing comes what that's really gonna do. I think wall to wall is gonna be a real test with that 100-man strong Cat 1-2 field. But overall, it's been a pretty good start to the year. I did some really good base miles, and getting that foundational fitness is so important, because it's what everything else is going to build off of. Even your sprint can benefit from having a nice strong base miles. And yeah, I think was this the first real gap that the field let go here? I think it was. I think this gap actually might have stuck for a little while. So it's fun racing in these situations, and it's unpredictable. We had separate podiums for Cat 1-2 Masters and for Cat 3, and so there's kind of these 3 races in the race, which is interesting when there's only 20 of you on the road. And how do those tactics work? How are you going to play it out? Well, it's a tough and tricky one to figure out. Unique to this one, I don't think I've really had an experience of a field quite with this tactical layout. But yeah, that GS guy got a good gap on us by the time we're really hitting the base of the steep section. So it's, really, I don't think he can bridge up to Nigel and Dylan. So it's up to the rest of the field here. What can they do? They gotta drag him back. We gotta get the Cat 3 guys to bring him back. So one of the tactics you could use on this climb, if you were, maybe trying to save your legs, or if you needed a little bit of a rest, or you were just feeling rough in a race, is try and get to the front of it by here. And lots of people describe this lots of different ways. Sag climbing, use the field to do less work. And I think a Masters racer here started to do it a little bit as we hit the base of the climb, but you really want to be as far forward as possible, because if you can do this climb at 400 watts instead of at 500 watts. That's a lot of energy saved, and you're not going to be that much worse off for it when you get to the top. And even in a shorter course that's got a steep climb like that, you can use a lot of that pack, especially when you've got a big pack. You can use a lot of that to your advantage. Dylan puts it well. The old fat boy fade, yeah. And hey, light guys can use it too. Don't feel put out if you're a light guy sag climbing. That's a totally reasonable move. So same, you know, these that was good. The field stayed hard over the top of that climb, and you can see the gaps immediately start to form. And everyone, including me, has to do that extra work to close it. And so, you know, if I were to hammer one tactical point home from this whole thing, it's just keep going hard over the top of that climb, and you will do damage to the field. You will get rid of riders who are feeling weak, or you will eliminate people's energy and they won't be able to sprint or attack when it comes time to. I also have just realized that I think the video only has a left audio channel. I don't know how that happened, but you know, you could. So I don't. Maybe I've had some good conversations on the right side. I don't know. I don't know. This is good. A couple good digs. Quinn was really fast to react to these things. It was good. You want to be paying attention, but your positioning in the field matters. But the other thing I'd say, you know, in a lot of these situations, you don't need to panic. Someone's going to chase the work. Someone's going to chase it down for you, or it's gonna ease up a little bit. So don't worry about getting it all done at once when you are trying to chase back into a group that's strung out. Wilson's asked, do you think going slower up the climb at the front of the group might make for a faster overall chase? And it totally would. When you go up the climb super hard, especially if you're setting the pace and you're setting the pace super hard, you're gassed at the top. You know, you can't keep going at that pace all day. And likewise, any teammates or anyone you've got working with you is also going to be pretty faded from doing a climb super hard. So if you ride that little bit easier, just take it. You know, I would describe it as steady. You know, you don't want to be doing damage to the group, but you want to be keeping your pursuit going. I would say that gets you a lot of more momentum, because now you're at the top of the climb. Everyone's still got fresh legs. You can accelerate back up to that chase speed of 45 kilometers per hour that you need to close down big gaps, and everyone's legs are a little bit fresher for it. So you might have done the climb 4 kilometers per hour slower, but now you can hold 10 kilometers per hour faster. So it does make a big difference that way. So hopefully you're getting a sense of this start finish climb. It's not small. It can be pretty hard, and I think actually almost all of the hardest gaps, except for the one gap that actually stuck, we were almost always creating pretty good cracks in the field over the top of that climb. So it's pretty tough. And so to think about, you actually have to sprint up that, and where are you going to time that sprint? For me, that was going through my head basically from lap 3 on, when I knew that the chase wasn't coming back and I was having fun, but I wanted to win the sprint. So from then on, I was going, where am I going to do my sprint? And it will sometimes be dictated to you, but I'm starting to think, how early do I want to start digging? So we still got the GS guy up the road. The Cat 1-2s are back to the front. Wanted to do some work. Actually, maybe it's not all Cat 1-2s. Oh yeah, it's all Cat 1-2s. But once those gaps get out to kind of 30 seconds on this course, they can stay a surprisingly long time if no one's determined to do the work. Galen's describing as using his uneven steady pace to go even faster, but I've been on Galen's wheel, and it is an even steady pace. It is also a demonstrably difficult pace to sustain. So, you know, that's it's raw power there, Galen. It's not just an even pace. But for those of us that also aren't gifted as time trialists like myself, even pace can be hard to maintain at the threshold that I would need to maintain a big gap. And so that's why hilly courses would favor guys like us who aren't rollers, more like a puncher or something. In those cases, you know, you need to kind of dig a little bit harder on the climbs to maintain your gap, and make sure that when you get over the top that you accelerate yourself back up to speed, but can soften it a little bit once you're back up there, because that way, kind of going over under, I can roll faster overall than I would be able to if I just said, okay, I'm going to pin it here at 300 watts, because I know that as a rider I don't have that ability. But if you are gifted enough to be able to do that, just pin it to a number and hold that, that's probably by far the faster way to establish a really strong break, or to hold a break. So we're still chasing Glotman, and you can see there I did a little bit of a soft pull through, and it can be tough tactically when you don't need to do work, but you still want to be at the front, to make sure that you pull through in a way that doesn't, you know, you're not just sitting in, you're not just, you know, bumming around, especially in a breakaway. In a pack, this is not a big deal, but in a breakaway, you're not just sitting on the back and making the break probably fail in certain situations, but not pull through so hard that you're burning your own matches, or that you're chasing back a field, or if your numbers are bad, that you know, you can have the tactical advantage at the end. So that's kind of what I was doing here when I was pulling through. So you can see we almost caught, and this is something that happens a lot with these breakaways. You'll almost catch them and the field will sit up, because doing the last 50 meters of work to close a gap can be harder than the last 10 kilometers of chase. And you know, it's a mental thing. You know, Glotman did a good job here of getting to the front, and you know, we're not riding hard anymore. We're doing a nice easy pace, and so the gap was probably down to less than 15 seconds there for a bit of this straightaway. That's easily back out to 20, maybe almost 30, and one of the Velo Vets guys is bridging across to it, and that's great for him. If he can get up there, that's the Masters race and the Cat 3 race are both in a separate breakaway. So realistically, everyone else in this field should be starting to be concerned about that. Who is thinking about that Masters podium? Oh yeah, to be clear, that's the gap to the bridging group with the GS rider. That's maybe at 30 seconds now. Nigel and Dylan finished this race with a 4-minute gap. They were long gone. Nigel, Dylan, and John did some damage to us today. I would love to see what their overall numbers were from this race. I imagine that they probably averaged well into the 300s to have stayed away. So, you know, at this point, I know that I've done a lot of work in this race, and like I said earlier, my normalized power was one of my top 3 for racing this year, which maybe says our racing hasn't been that intense, but I think it actually says that this race wasn't actually very easy. Despite all outward appearances, it was driven pretty hard. People were doing work and making it fun. But at this point, I am trying to get some recovery in, because it's been a lot of work for me, and now that we're so far into the race that I can think about the sprint, it's now time for me to start finding that recovery and finding those watts that I need back in my legs. Super impressed with this Hugh Dog guy doing a lot of work, taking more than his fair share of turns on the front. Everyone should have been pulling like that, but Glotman was playing the right tactical card here, not pulling through, and when he did pull through, setting an easy pace. It's you know, disrupting the chase is tactically tricky and can be really important when a breakaway is established and you want to control the race as the team, and you want to have that control. And if you watch the pro races, you'll see those guys soft pull through in the chase, disrupt the break, especially when they know what's up the road is going to win or has the firepower to win. But again, hitting the base of this climb, the Cat 3s get excited. They want to make it hard. And right to the front. Let's see how hard we go this time. I really like this climb. It's that, like, it's not long enough to really, this pitch itself is not long enough to set itself into your legs, but you've done a lot of work to get here. So to make a move can be really easy and can be really decisive. But it's also, it's a struggle to be there. It's you know, you gotta make sure you're doing the work. And yeah, again, this is one of those situations where I just wanted that pace to just stay hard, keep that power up that little bit longer, and do that little bit of fatiguing damage to the group. You know, you've already sat on the front doing 600 watts for 30 seconds. Push it just a little bit longer. Push it another 5-10 seconds, and that damage is gonna go from sucking to solidifying. At this point, looks like we're about to finish closing on that bridge attempt up to the GS rider, who is the chase group, as we'll call it all. But our Glotman Simpson guy still off the front. I think he might even be beyond 30 seconds at this point. That was a good time, well-timed move where he got away on the climb. I really did expect to catch him earlier, but yeah, he attacked at the perfect moment and kept the effort on. There's still a fair amount of race to go. I should really have a lap counter because I've honestly lost track. I don't even have a timer going to know how long I've been racing for. 70-minute race. I'll have to look at the lap board as we go by, and hopefully I can make out the number and tell you how many laps. Probably 2 or 3 to go. But yeah, the pulls are not the type of pulls now that are going to close. Are not the type that's going to close that gap. Yeah, I'm getting a frame drop alert here, so if you're getting really bad videos, I think it's my internet connection has gone south on me. I'm not getting the upload speed that they promise. I will endeavor to get better video for next time, if there's a next time on these. Let's see if I can see that frame drop in my video. Yeah, so again, trying to get some recovery, and as always in these, it's really about making up those gaps or making up wheels when you have the chance. So even on that descent there, left hand side of the field, you're sheltered from the wind on the left side, and so on that descent I could comfortably make up 1 or 2 wheels if the opportunity presented itself, and it's something I'd probably chase. Oh yeah, look, another little gap established. I think, is that Carlo gone again, or is that Matthews? I can't tell. So again, doing this is, if I said the one lesson would be to keep the power on over the top of the climb, the other one lesson would be when you bridge across, bridge hard. Let those gaps open up and then jump. Jump across, because if you're gonna just drag it back, bring the whole field with you, you've wasted your energy, you've wasted an effort that really could have gone to potentially been an advantage for you, been a gap for you. So yeah, don't waste those efforts. Make them count and make the field work. That effort didn't work. The whole field's still here. And I think Quinn actually was the one that brought it back, so. And Carlo's gone again. And at this point, I don't really want to do another jump. That was an effort. I want a little bit of recovery here, so I'm going to hide in the wind. This is again into the headwind, so you get quite a lot of rest when you're sitting tucked in nicely on one of these. No one really wants to chase anymore. I think we're all, it's a small field, and when you've been kind of keeping it as spicy as we have been, everyone gets a little bit over the work, a little bit fatigued, wants to take that time to recover. And really that's the best time to attack, because that's the opportunity where everyone's feeling lazy, not paying attention. So Zach here does that, and paying enough attention, I was able to jump on his wheel right away. I'm not sure what the pack did immediately behind us, but he's putting in a nice big dig. Timed it really well. I would say the one mistake he made was trying to time it into the descent. You know, you're gonna do a lot of work that's very easy to close because it's a downhill. Everyone has that mechanical advantage of the, yeah. So it's. Oh, trying to bridge up to these guys, see what happens. I think it's just Carlo up there. I'm not sure if he's got the GS guy with him or not, if he's managed to make that happen. Looks like he has. And then, yeah, if I remember correctly here, I look back and I'm at this point about equidistance between the break or the bridge and the field. And I decide, for better or worse, this was probably a mistake. I probably should have just finished this off and closed the gap up to these guys. But I decide to kind of sit in no man's land, use less energy, get caught by the field that I think is going to catch the chase group. But I can't guarantee that the field is going to catch this chase group. So this whole lack of expending of energy maybe doesn't do me any good. But it looks like our Cat 3 guys in this field do want to close back up. So I'm on the win side now. What I really should be doing is trying to find my way into shelter and get some recovery from that little effort, which is what I go to do. But these guys do want to close it down, do want to get their Cat 3 group all as Grupo Compacto. And yeah, this is a mistake. I would tell you right now, don't do what I'm doing here. Try and get yourself hidden as quickly as possible, because this is energy you don't have to spend. If you can get on the right side of the field, the wind's coming from the south, it's way better to be hidden and using less energy. It's probably, you know, maybe 50 watts less to be on the downwind side of this field. And you can see they've got a good echelon going, to the point that even being back here is putting you into the gutter. All right, so this is an interesting one. There are better and worse wheels to follow in a field going into a corner. And knowing how you're setting up for the corner, depending on who you're behind, is going to make a big difference. So if I know I'm behind someone who is a confident cornerer, I'm probably going to follow them really closely. But if there's someone who I know doesn't corner as well, or corners in a way that I don't really like, I will probably give them a little bit more space. And Zach did that, was able to carry quite a bit of momentum coming out of that corner, and didn't have to do nearly as much work to stay with the field. In some ways, often gets referred to as tail gunning. It's not really tail gunning when you're in the field, but just knowing and paying attention to who's around you and not waste energy on those coming out of those corners, and to feel confident. Confident cornering is fast cornering. So that breakaway is still up there. We'll see if they can hold on this powerful chase from the field. And oh yeah, they've still got a good gap. They've still got a good gap. This is you know, they could make this count for themselves here. Yeah, we're a little over. I think there must only be one lap of racing left, maybe two. So we'll see how hard we take this last climb. And I think that's where on the breakaway you are doing a nice steady pace up it. If we're within, I'd say probably 15 seconds, maybe a little bit more. If the field is within that, it would be very hard to finish away by the top of this last pitch, because you, as the break, can't go as deep as the field can on that climb, just because you don't have the advantage of numbers. You don't have the advantage of the draft. So you want to make sure that by the base of the climb you had a nice big gap. Otherwise, yeah, the field's going to be on you real fast, unless the field isn't chasing hard, in which case, you know, maybe you'll stay away. But better to play your cards. So maybe these guys have enough distance. They've got a pretty good gap now. Yeah, I've talked through most of the tactics of the race. So if anyone has questions, please put them in the chat. We'll try and answer them as we go. You know, we still got some spice on this hill. We're still comfortably climbing at, you know, 500-600 watts. It's not getting easier. You know, we want to keep it hard. And that's kind of what I was talking about, going back to Wilson's question earlier about the difference between climbing a little bit slower versus a little bit spicier. And you know, we're still climbing spicy, but you can see that gap came down a lot on that climb. You know, it was probably out to 15-20 seconds at the base, and now it doesn't look like it's more than 5 or 6. So that short distance really does make a difference when you're dealing with climbs like that. So if we were to compress this onto a shorter, steeper course, and I'm trying to think of a great example in, you know, the New West Grand Prix during Super Week, 50% of the course is a climb, 50% of the course is a descent. Really hard to get away on it just because of how fast the descent is, but I did see moves successfully get away, especially in the women's field. There was some super strong riders who were, and really it was about staying on the pedals across the top of the hill. That's what established it. And this is good. Last time we got close to these guys, you saw we all let up, and you know, the gap got right back out to 30 seconds. Quinn knew what to do that time. Quinn just shut it down, and that's what you got to do. You got to move fast and shut down that move. And Glotman, great move, counter-attacking. We've just done a ton of work to drag back one of his teammates, so he goes on the offensive. That's a smart move. That's what you want to do in these race situations when you've got the numbers to play off of each other. The one thing I would say is his poor teammate now has to jump into a field that's trying to chase down his gap. So it really, you know, in a bigger field, you've got a lot more draft to play with in this situation, but I think everyone was fine to get back in this one. And we've shut it down, but yeah, he resigns to his fate, sits up, and here goes another bit of a dig. No, just a move. So down here, I would definitely say for the United guy to, you know, sit a little bit on the left of Carlo's wheel. Yeah, there we go. Rather than on the right-hand side. And here I make a mistake. I think maybe I can move up on the right-hand side and move up one wheel into that corner. But as soon as I moved right, I felt that wind shift, that crosswind, shut me right down. So pay attention to the wind. You know, don't make that mistake. So this is what I was talking about, knowing who you're following into the wheel, into a corner, not following someone you're not confident behind super close, giving yourself a little bit of breathing room. You can corner a lot more confidently that way. If you're playing it really smart, you can move up a ton of wheels too, or just use less energy. All of these are commendable. So let's see if I can spot the lap board this time up. I missed it the time before. I'm hoping this is bell lap because my throat is dry and this water isn't helping anymore. I don't know how professional streamers do this. It's a lot of talking. We're still jamming on this climb though. Now, this is still hard. Can I make it out? Oh, I cannot make that out. Can I make out the other one? No. That was a polite wave to tell me that he was about to blow his nose, where he then blew his nose on me. I'm gonna have to research these tips. You know, I don't talk this much. This is a lot of talking, guys. I also don't have any lemon or cayenne with me, so maybe afterwards I'll try both those things, and I may just take the beer. Yeah, apparently I can hear my left ear because I could not hear the bell. Well, I hope that's it. And if it is, then this last lap was really fun because I had done enough rest to feel really refreshed. So. And, you know, this is when you're coming from the draft and into a descent like that, it's amazing how I didn't have to pedal at all. We've got a headwind here. I didn't have to pedal at all, and I was able to move up one just because I was using the draft as a slingshot. But yeah, not going super hard. I am not super tucking. There were 3 warnings for super tucking in this event. I did not receive one. That was a nice arrow tuck for more of a time trial position on the flats. Super tucking is apparently super dangerous. I will never endorse it on stream. So you can, yeah, this must be the last lap because no one's coming around me. I'm doing 140 watts. Like, this is sitting up. So the tactics, that cat and mouse that come from that last lap, there they are. And so we see a couple little spicy moves. I was in the front kind of by fluke. I just got there. I wasn't doing much work. It's a nice draft. They were giving lots of room to move up on the right. My advice to everyone, again, if you got a big crosswind, especially in the last lap where the tactics are really starting to play out, go to the field. Make everyone else deal with the crosswind that you are at the front. So now United Velo starts to pick it up. How big is the group? I think at this point we're probably down to 15 riders. We had 20-ish at the start. We had a few drop off over the course, and then obviously there's 3 up the road. Not a big group. Not a big group. I would have loved to have had a big group for this race because it would have been really fun, really tactical. But yeah, at this point, just kind of tucked in, hunkered down. Hiding a little bit. There we go. Find the real draft. There we go. So it's not a super hard effort. Like, this last lap, it's really playing out with a lot of that cat and mousing. Tactically, could be really interesting. It's a really tricky race to figure out because we do, like, we've got this 3 races in one, where we've got a separate 1-2 podium, a separate 3 podium, and a separate Masters podium. So everyone's racing everyone, and also they're paying attention to who matters inside the field for their result. So realistically, at the sprint, the Cat 3 guys don't have to beat anyone but the other Cat 3 guys to get on the podium. Now, I much prefer to race something as if it all just matters. Everything matters. Keep it interesting. This is Spring Series. I want the hard workout. I want the experience. I want to play with the tactics. So I would encourage people, when they find themselves in non-A races that have this kind of configuration, to take advantage of it as a learning opportunity and as a training opportunity. I think we all forgot that we were going to turn here, so there we go. Set yourself up. Actually, I think he just wanted off the front. That he's still there. Doing work for all of us. So if it really depends on the situation, this climb is a great opportunity on that last lap to make it hard, and taking advantage of that was a great move. I didn't want to let him get away. I still, you know, the podium here goes 5 deep, so even if I'm racing for 4th, it's still a spot on the podium, so might as well go for it. So I jumped right on his wheel as quickly as I could, and we had a gap, so maybe I try and make it stick. Do a bit of a dig here. It turns out that this dig wasn't enough, and the field was in fact a lot closer than I first thought. So that quickly became a much softer attack as we started on this climb, and I can use the climb to drift back a little bit and recover. Out of water. So let's see how the race plays out going up this climb. You know, there's the potential here for some real damage to be done. If you were feeling really good that you had about 2 kilometers in your legs, maybe 1.5 kilometers, doing a ton of damage on this hill and then holding it through to the finish line isn't outside the realm of possibility, especially with how damaged this field is. We've been working pretty hard. All our legs are softened up quite a bit. You know, you can see right now, like, I'm effectively coasting and no one's coming around me. The whole field's with me. I'm not trying to be on the front or away, but you know, not until this moment does anyone come around me. So this is where I would say, you know, hopefully you didn't have Zach didn't have to do too much work on the rest of the climb when I was away with his teammate, and where I would encourage him to deliver some, you know, brute force firepower up it. But it's actually the Cat 3s who really love spicing it up on this hill and start really jamming. And this was hard. This was, you know, 10 laps in or whatever we're in. It's a lot of work to try and hold that. So I want Zach to finish closing this down because I don't want to do that, have to come around him. There you go. You know, I didn't need to do any extra, but my momentum just coming up the top of that hill just carried me through to the front, which I didn't really want to be here. But at this point, because I'm trying to set myself up for the sprint, since that first attack failed, if I'm on the front, I can control the wheels as they come around me, hopefully a little bit, and hop onto them. With a bigger field, this would be a lot harder to do, and realistically, with a bigger field at the end of a race, you'd be gassed. But Zach goes again, hop on his wheel, and he's really going for it. But I think the field is right there. At this point, you know, the break, to have gotten a break to stay away at this point in the race, would have had to have been coming over the top of that hill. And if you had done that, and you could have held that power, or you and one other person could have held that power, you would have comfortably stayed away for the rest of this race. And I'm just hopping on every wheel. You know, I don't want anyone to get away alone, and I think the field would let the Cat 1-2 guys get away on their own because we're not factoring into their race. But I don't want that to happen, so I'm gonna jump on these wheels as they come by and get a good draft in behind them and keep recovering when I'm not actively chasing. So we're gonna get set up here. It's the descent into this last lap. Positioning is gonna matter a ton. Now, I think I played this too aggressively. I would have preferred to have been third wheel, I think. But I fought the GS guy way too hard for his teammate's wheel here. Totally unnecessary at the end of the day, and I probably would have been better off in third wheel coming out of this corner. But you can see I'm barely working, using the draft to my advantage. I've been spinning my legs as much as I can because the sprint's coming up and I want to flush out anything that's in there, make sure that I'm really ready to go. Yeah, Wilson points out listening. I was listening a lot here when stuff was starting to move up. That was kind of how I was catching those gaps early. So here I make a mistake. I try and go around him on the outside. This was pointless. I didn't trust the line he was taking through the corner, and he pushed me a little bit wide. Realistically, I didn't need to take that as aggressively as I did. I had a lot of speed and momentum that I knew I could carry, and I didn't want to waste it. But ultimately, I don't think that got me anything other than pushed onto the yellow a little bit. No one tell Ryan. Now I heard that sprint start, and I hopped in his wheel, and I think I jumped too early to close the sprint. It wasn't a big deal, as you can see, but I would have preferred to have started later, and I think I definitely could have delayed that sprint with those two guys coming around me and used them as the slingshot rather than kind of bouncing off behind them. But it was a good opportunity to push it a little bit and jump across, and now we roll up and we'll high-five the teammates as we go through. And end result of the race, Nigel won, Dylan got second, and John got third. So 3 of us on the podium with Carlo rounding out the 1-2s. It was good, and yeah, it was a really fun day. Thank you to Escape Velocity for hosting it. It's been a wicked spring series so far. We've been given some of the best weather for a spring series I've ever encountered, so that's really set us up well. Thanks everyone for watching. Feel free to subscribe if you haven't already, and hopefully you'll get some more Crit Corner episodes going, and give me any feedback on the live stream that you want. Thank you.
On the count of 3, 2, 1, go!